Hey, what is going on guys, this is Tharshey and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the top 3 tier 1 commanders on good side in Lord of the Rings Rise to War. So if you guys do enjoy this video, then please do drop a like, comment and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on those post notifications. Anyway, let's get straight into it. So today's is a pretty simple video. We're just going to be talking about the top 3 good side tier 1 champions. And the reason for this is just for those of you guys, who are wondering who should you invest in, who should you try up their respect on. Well, you're going to find out after this video. So we're in number 3 spot, and this is probably no surprise to you, we have Haldir. And the reason for this is Haldir is a pretty great T1. He's got amazing skills, he buffs his army, and he can be doing a ton of damage. In terms of gear, you can actually equip him pretty well with just blue gear, but obviously if you have purple gear and gold gear, that just makes him that much better. Anyway, let's go and have a look at his skills. So if we look at Haldir's skills, he's got on his tier 1 trees, or his R1 trees, or should I say R0 trees, he has Guide, which first 2 rounds all allied units physical damage plus 45%, and while damage is increased, your army gains stun immunity as well. And obviously those sub trees is Armed Escort and Foresight. He also has Marsh Warden of Lorien, which is just a damage skill, along with Cull the Weak and Elite. Elite just raises his stats, Cull the Weak just deals damage to the lowest defense target. Next, his R3 tree is Sylvan Elf. And honestly, I don't think his R3 tree is that great, but normally people run Haldir with Eagles, and he has Beast Training, which beasts recover 100% HP per a round. And that makes his R3 tree very valuable, because you have to max out Sylvan Elf to max out Beast Training, and maxing out Beast Training just gives your army that much more survivability, especially if you're running something like Eagles with March Wardens, because you're playing Lothlorien. Then you have tier 4 elves dealing a ton of damage, and you have Eagles just sitting there absorbing hits and then healing. Forest Agility, I don't like this ability at all. At max, it only gives you like 25% chance in follow-up, which I feel is a waste of 7 points. But then in his R5, he has Galadrim, which is allied ranged units physical damage plus 18% effect modified by speed stat. So this is where his ranged units do a ton of damage. Then he also has Shield Trading, which ranged units damage received is minus 14%, and 45, which is while defending all allied units physical damage received minus 18%. So what makes Haldir so great? Well, Haldir, you can boost his attack a lot, okay? First of all, his army comp is very simple. You go with all ranged and a meat shield of melee units just to guard those ranged units. For example, just a bunch of March Wardens along with some Guardians to guard them. Or if you're running his R3 tree with the Beast Training, then you have a bunch of Eagles with some March Wardens or Bow Knights or whatever you have available to you. Okay, you're just going to stick a whole bunch of Elvish ranged in the back, and you're going to have some Eagles to protect them if you're running his R3 tree. If you're not running his R3 tree, then you can just use something like Guardians. And you get a ton of damage from your reports. You can have Haldir dealing like nearly 300,000 damage as a tier 1 with like poorish gear. Like, you don't have to have the greatest gear, though obviously the better the gear you have, the better you're gonna do. Like, if instead of just having this, if I had this Markwood bow, maxed out, and I gave his ranged attack to +3, and then I gave him like a helmet that also gave like +3 ranged attack or something, you can basically get Haldir all the way up to where he's doing +12 ranged attack just from his equipment. So all his ranged units will be doing like +12 range damage, and that's just an absolute ton of damage. So Haldir is a really great starting commander, and obviously if you're using him on the defensive, Fortify is an amazing skill. Depending on whether you're fighting good or evil not as much, because they use a lot of burn, poison damage, focus damage and stuff like that. But against good, it's pretty great, because you can just sit on a tile, defend it, and you're going to be receiving 18% less damage. Then you're going to be receiving minus 14% less damage on your ranged unit, so that's just even, you're just going to be taking that much less damage. And in your first 2 rounds, you have 45% extra damage plus 18% damage, which is modified by speed, so it'll go up to like maybe 20 or 30%, and you're just dealing a ton of damage. Anyway, Haldir is an all-around great pick, and on to our number 2 pick, and that is Dwalin. So I know a lot of people may actually disagree with that and say he's number 1, but I think he's number 2, okay? So this is also personal playstyle, and for him, he's got his R0 trees, a musician, which just boosts his speed and defense stats, and at max level gives his army +3 attack. He has relief, which is a healing skill, and level-headed, which is a another healing, but though it recovers some HP, but it's more important because it removes one random debuff. And these are pretty helpful, especially if you're fighting against PvE. So if you're fighting or farming monsters or something like that, then these skills come in pretty handy and allow you to deal a lot of damage while taking very less damage, so that you can go and grind monsters for gold and just not lose too many troops doing that. Next, his top R0 tree is Experienced Warrior, and this allows you to make Dwalin into an absolute beast, because Dwalin is a damage commander. So all the damage being dealt, unlike Haldir where his damage comes from his army, Dwalin is the one dealing damage, not the army. The army is just there to absorb hits. Experienced Warrior makes his normal attack damage plus 60% and increases his damage against melee units by 10%. Then you have Hunt Down in Collaboration. So Hunt Down, damage dealt plus 11.2%, effect modified by Might Stat for 2 rounds up to 2 stacks. So after he attacks, Hunt Down activates, okay? It increases the damage you deal against the units. Then Collaboration activates after that, and then Collaboration will deal 125% physical damage. However, that does even more damage because of Hunt Down modifying it. So it's a very good combo. It synergizes really well. Next we have his R3 tree. This is where a ton of his skill damage comes in. You got Durin's Blood, which increases skill damage by 35% during combat and gives you extra might and max level. And then you have All In and you have Whirlwind, both of which are great damage skills. Whirlwind does have All In does have a next damage dealt by, reduces it by 50%, but it's a small price to pay for the amount of damage it does. And if you're fighting against evil, or if you're fighting against commanders that deal a ton of burn damage, well, you can max out Warrior of the Lonely Mountain. Obviously, this depends on how many skill points you have, though at max level, it gives you minus 15% physical damage received to your army, and at max level, your army will receive 50% less burn damage. So it's a very great skill to run, especially against evil, where you're going to be fighting a lot of alchemists and commanders dealing burn damage. Against good, not so much, though obviously you're gonna still helpful to run it if you do have the extra skill points and you want to do that, because then you can have physical damage received minus 15%. Though another good thing to do is you can put 2 points into Musician and 1 point into Level Headed, and that will give you a free debuff removal. So that is pretty helpful, and that sticks Dwalin in my number 2 spot. Now onto my number 1 spot. Well, I'm giving it to Eowyn, okay? Whether Dwalin is better, it depends, because, Dwalin is a damage commander, Eowyn is a army buff commander, so her army deals damage instead of her, but I really, really like her. As you can see, I have her at R14. I do have a unique, though it's not leveled up, and I'm not going to be leveling it up anytime soon, as I'm trying to save up to level Gimli's and Short Calabash, but still. Eowyn is God. She does amazing against so many different types of commanders, and it's really, really good. So right now I'm actually trying a different build out where I'm seeing if I can get Eowyn to deal more damage and make her actually effective in damage deal besides just army. But in terms of her R0 skill, she has Shield Maiden, which is a 40% chance of reducing physical damage received by 30%, I believe, at max. Then you have Attack Vitals, which is just a damage skill, and Defensive Stance, which is a damage skill, and which I don't ever see anyone running, and that's because Eowyn, as I said, is not a damage commander. She is a army buffing commander. She buffs your army, and your army deals the damage. If you look at our R0 tree, the bottom one, you'll see how mounted units, damage plus 9.6% upon inflicting damage, effect modified by speed stat up to 3 stats. So Rohirrim allows your cavalry units, or all your mounted units, to basically just go God mode and deal a ton of damage. Then you have Riding Excellence, which is mounted units damage received minus 14%, which is great to have because you're going to be running a full mounted army. Full mounted army, you're obviously going to want to have your units receiving less damage. Another thing you have is Cleave, which is a damage skill, and the effect is modified by your speed stat. So it's one reason I like to stick my extra points into it, because it's a damage skill. It's being modified by her speed, which is also pretty high because as a cav commander, I'm upgrading her might and her speed. Those are my main focuses. Then we have our R3 tree, which I don't see that many people using, but I've decided to try out because Dernhelm, Eowyn damage dealt plus 20%, normal attack damage plus 20%. So I'm hoping this stacks up and gives a plus 40% damage per hit. So we'll have to see how she does in PvP. And she has Cripple, Damage Skill, and Giant Slayer, which increases damage against large units, which can be helpful, but only if you're fighting like an absolute ton of trolls or large units, okay? Then we have a R5 tree, White Lady of Rohan. Every round, all mounted units recover 30% HP. This is not enough to really, it's not a massive heal. However, it's enough to just keep her army in the fight. So by healing them by 30% every round, it allows her to mitigate some of her losses and, you know, just to stay in the fight that much longer and deal that much more damage. More importantly, this skill gives your entire army, so long as you're using all cav, aka mounted units, gives them all stun immunity for the entire match. So your Eowyn is completely immune to stun. If you get a helmet with madness, she can be immune to both stun and madness, like I've done over here. As you can see, I have resolve, which gives me madness immunity for the first 3 rounds. So once that's maxed out, for the first 3 rounds she'll be stun and madness immune. After that she will just be stun immune. Then the rest of the sub skills for R5 tree is frontline rescue. Round 3, allied melee units recover 300% HP. So that means, because a lot of damage normally comes out in the first 2 rounds, so at round 3 I will heal up my entire army by a good amount. And then nobility, men damage plus 21%. This works really well because my cav units that I use on her tend to be men units. I tend to run a lot of cataphracts, I tend to run a lot of cavaliers with some ram riders just to lower enemy defense, but my main force is made up of men cavalry, which are my cavaliers and my cataphracts, so they'll be all dealing 21% extra damage. So yeah, that's my ranking for my top 3 tier 1 commanders. In first place we have Eowyn herself. In second place we have Dwalin, if I can find him, over here. And in third place we have my boy Haldir, who is really great, though he's a little bit more situational, as you kind of have to play him smart if you're fighting commanders that are dealing a lot of burn, focus, damage, stuff like that. You know, you may not want to take that fight. It's better to just sit back because you want to use him on defensive. It just makes him more effective with having fortify and stuff like that. And yeah, anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and if you did, please do drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on those post notifications. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video.